Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and true. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds. Nerds for Humanity. I have been doing a lot of interviews lately, including the big one yesterday with the Andrew Yang interview, but I haven't done a data deep dive in a while. So wanted to kind of go over the state of the race and talk about how good old Biden and Trump are doing, and what are the probabilities that one of them will win, and how are the two of them doing in different states, and etc. So hopefully this will be useful to all of you guys who like that data. I know I love the interviews, but I really like looking at charts too. So before we get started, if you want to say hi in the chat and let me know where you guys are joining us from, feel free to say hi. I'm coming to you from the good old US of A, which is new for this channel. Let's see, I guess we started the channel, I want to say in March of 2019. So for the first, over a year, I guess. Year and a half, we were always producing the content from Switzerland, which is where I was working at the time. But now I'm back in the States and really enjoying the Bay Area. So the whole California sunshine thing is legit. D-Ray is joining us from Florida. I was just talking to my mom who lives in Florida. We have Arkansas with Melanie Fong from Beantown. Elizabeth Norris, very crucial state of Michigan. Faraz, my mom lives in the Orlando area. So very cool. Greetings, nerds. You guys ready to look at some charts, get into the data? It's been a while, so let's do it. Stretch out a little bit. Okay. Ooh, we have a European. Rachel from Italy. What is it? Buonasera? Something like that. Okay. All right. Let's look at the first thing. Oh, Vegas Nightshades from Wisconsin. Very famous state, obviously. Something that old Hillary had not thought about. All right, Elizabeth's like, whatever, show us the data. And Mount Slur is saying that polls are fake. Well, I won't just show you polls. I'll also show you gambling betting odds and Google Trends data to the extent that that's useful. Let's start with the polls, though, since we have those ready to go. And where are we? Here it is. Okay, so this is the average, the Real Clear Politics average of multiple polls over time. And if we look at just say like the last 6 months, I think the most interesting thing that I would call out is that Trump is, he's down, but he's actually starting to climb and scratch his way back. So, this is a kind of a reminder how we can't rest on our laurels, and everybody's going to need to turn out on November 3rd or mail in your ballots well in advance, because that red line is slowly kind of scratching its way back. So you could argue that, maybe if you project this out to November, it could be a nail biter. So that's just kind of a quick look at the national polling. If you look at the most recent ones that have come in, you have Hill, Harris showing 43-40. I mean, geez, that's pretty much in the kind of margin of error. Economist has Biden up by a little more, by 9, but then Rasmussen only by 3. Emerson only by 4. I mean, guys, if you're looking for change in the White House, this chart makes it look a little bit, I think because of the scale, this chart makes it look a little further apart than they really are. I mean, 6 points is nothing for Trump to do a surprise, especially if he contests some of the results. He's already starting to kind of list his grievances around the mail-in ballot stuff. So hopefully everyone will come out. Oh, Mount Slur is saying that that those who stayed home in 16, more will stay home. Oh God! So he's predicting a Trump surprise. Donald's gonna surprise the world again. Well, I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong, Mount Slur, but certainly it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Now, for those who are Biden supporters, I do have some good. Oh, I guess. Well, now Faraz is saying no, more will stay home and vote. And I think Mount Slur was saying they're just going to stay home, period. Who knows? Hopefully people will vote. It's kind of a big deal. Frankly, even if you're pro-Trump, you should vote. I mean, this is what makes this country truly great, which is that we have a modern, trustworthy democracy, right? With a peaceful transition of power, which you really can't say for a lot of countries. So let's not kind of squander this opportunity. If you are a Biden supporter, you may find this chart interesting, which compares how Biden is doing relative to how Clinton was doing. A certain number of days, this is about 103 days before the election. Now we're about 90 days out. So it ends around here, 90 days from election, which is about right now. And you'll see that at this point, you had Clinton's peak. There is a narrative out there that a lot of my MAGA friends like to emphasize, which was, the libs, they call the Democrats the libs. The libs got owned. It's a very big thing for MAGA supporters, is to own the libs. And they'll say, the libs got owned. You were crying in tears of liberal tears of pain and suffering. You thought you had it all locked up. Actually, Clinton at her peak only had a 7-point lead. And a few days before the 2016 election, her lead was down to like 3. So Trump's win was a surprise for sure. I think a lot of the MAGA people are conflating the probability of Clinton's win with the actual polling lead that she had, which was quite slim. But yeah, for what it's worth, Biden already has a bigger polling lead than Hillary Clinton ever had. So that is certainly encouraging. And hopefully Biden will be able to grow that lead or at least maintain it. I would imagine I wouldn't sleep well at night until we get a 10-point plus lead, just because of A, you never know if there's going to be a stronger MAGA turnout. B, you kind of want to have enough of a margin for error that that Donald doesn't try any funny business and say, "Oh, it doesn't count. We should postpone it, or let's have a do-over," or I challenge all of the votes in Florida, or I challenge all of the mail-in ballots in North Carolina, it would not be sort of surprising if he tries to, it wouldn't be surprising if he's not a sportsman like loser. It doesn't seem to be really in his DNA to kind of be, like magnanimous. It's probably not a word I would use to describe Donald Trump. But yeah, that's sort of the Biden lead over Trump versus the Clinton lead. And Pass the Yang is making good point that, yeah, you know what? Clinton was not well liked. And Biden, for all of his faults, is probably not nearly as disliked as Hillary was. She was a pretty flawed candidate, in my opinion. And I'm not surprised, frankly, that she kind of lost, because she was a pretty bad candidate, in my opinion. So that's looking at the Biden versus Hillary polling comparison. Now let's look at the election betting odds. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Share. Okay. So the gamblers are more optimistic than the polls. The gamblers believe that Biden has a 60% chance of winning, and that Trump has a 38% chance. So that's encouraging, because the gamblers are usually more accurate than the polls. In fairness, the gamblers had better odds for Hillary than Trump, so they have gotten it wrong. So let's not assume that just because the gamblers are giving good odds for a Biden win, nothing's for sure. I think more interesting than the odds of winning is probably the swing states. The gamblers are predicting that Florida has a 57% chance of going blue. North Carolina, where I think the Republicans were hoping to have their convention, and then it got moved to Florida, and then from Florida it was canceled. But in North Carolina, gamblers are giving Biden a 55% over 44 for Trump. And then you've got Pennsylvania pretty comfortably in the blue column. Wisconsin much more comfortably in the blue column. But you've got Iowa and Ohio pink and leaning Republican. I think most interesting is Texas actually has a 34% chance of going blue, which is not a good sign for Trump. Like, I can't imagine any situation where Texas becomes at play and the Republican, having a good outcome. Arizona, a little bit closer, a leaning Democrat. And then in terms of where you see very strong Trump support, Louisiana, 92%. The people of Mississippi are convinced that Trump is going to be the best leader for the country. The people of Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, solid Trump country. Oklahoma, solid Trump country. Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho. This is all Trump's stronghold. And then the inverse is basically these states basically on the coast near the ocean in the north. But this southeastern area and then this kind of middle of the country is generally solidly Trump. And then you have Hawaii, very blue, but Alaska, very red. So That's how the gamblers are thinking about what's going to happen. I would say if I were in the Biden camp, I think that's encouraging. BTS is saying it's over. Well, I hope you mean it's over as in the Trump reign is over. But Faraz is saying Southwest is a sleeping giant. Lots of Hispanic and Latinos are voting for the Democratic Party. You know, there was a time where the Republican Party had a strategy to really reach out to diversify its support and specifically try and target Hispanic voters. After Romney lost to Obama, there was kind of a come to Jesus within the GOP. But obviously with the election of Trump, I don't think his policies have been really well received by the Hispanic vote. So I'm not sure that Trump is going to get more Hispanic votes than Romney did. But I guess we'll see what happens, as the president likes to say. The next piece of data that I wanted to share is mail-in ballots. I know, and absentee ballots. A lot of people are very fired up about mailed-in ballots, either very pro in terms of the protection of people's health, or very skeptical in terms of potentially any kind of election tampering or fraud. Or I think Trump was often likes to bring up this argument that, well, maybe dead people are voting, maybe your dog is voting. So which states are doing a lot of mail-in ballots? Because there have been a number of states that have already had elections during the pandemic. And this will show you the percent that went absentee. Alaska was 100% mail-in ballots. Wyoming, 100%. Kansas, Oregon, all mail-in. Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, North Dakota. And I don't think people are claiming that their elections were, completely fraudulent and, overpopulated by dead people or dogs voting. So it's not new. Like, we've had mail-in ballots, I think, since maybe the Civil War, and we've had them through both World Wars, Vietnam. Mail-in ballots are not that new. For sure, the percent that are mailed in out of total votes will probably be historically high, but it's not like a whole new thing. In fairness, there are plenty of states where they didn't choose to do mail-in. And if you scroll down, you can see, I told you the ones that had the most mail-in participation. But if you look at Alabama, very few people wanted to do mail-in. Illinois, Oklahoma, only 14% mail-in. Texas and Louisiana had less than 20%. And, it required, you had to have like a specific reason. You couldn't just choose to do mail-in. Virginia and South Carolina, only 1 in 5. So these are places. Florida, only 46%. So there were, during this pandemic, many states where most people chose to vote in person. And I'll let you kind of draw whatever conclusions you want about that. I mean, I think that for me, it speaks to what kind of lockdown was it where 95% of people were voting in a poll? Why couldn't they just do it by mail and take a page out of Alaska and Oregon and Wyoming's book? But yeah, I thought that would be interesting. Hopefully all of you will consider for sure voting, but maybe think about mail-in. It's convenient and probably safer for your personal health. I next would like to kind of share some data around crime in America, because I know that's been a big topic of the president's campaign, and also look at some search trends about people searching for Trump or searching for Biden. Before I do that, I do want to give a special shout out to the channel members. As you can see, maybe not, hopefully you can see, I have some pretty good lighting. Like back when I was in Zurich, I would just use a desk lamp, but I've got these nice, like, kind of like soft white kind of lights here. And then I've got this sweet green screen. This is all possible because of Nerds for Humanity members. So if you've been thinking about becoming a member, go ahead, hit that join button. It helps me make better content, you know, keeps me motivated, and helps me upgrade, frankly, the quality of the content. One of the things that I'd like to do eventually is even do some advertising for the Nerds channel, to grow our audience, because one of the things I've noticed is there are some folks, like I would love to get Romney or you know, some governors on the show, but you know, we're still a kind of tiny channel, 15,000 subscribers. A lot of these kind of big shots, they feel like, well, you know, I'll go on Rogan or I'll go on, you know, The Hill, but, you know, Nerds for Humanity is kind of like small ball. So one of the things I may want to do is take this membership support and save it up, and then do some promotion of the channel so that we can get bigger audience, which then gets us more guests and higher profile guests. Even Andrew has been super kind to come on the show multiple times, because, you know, we've been supporting him for so long. But if we had a bigger audience, we could probably get that bro on, you know, monthly. But let me just call out for sure, Kristen Slevin has been a great supporter of the channel for a long time. And then at the VP level, Arkansas for Yang just joined probably yesterday. So welcome, Arkansas for Yang. Laura Lane, Chris Chan, Joshua Frick, Fat Lamb, V Lamb, JM Sap. Thank you for your support. And then we've got the next level is Hardcore, Mona, Burton, Landline, Mr. History Fan, Byram, Jekalago, Kirsch, Phoenix, Koa, DK, Tracy, Mrs. Jones, David, Jean, Mike. And then at the entry level, most popular level, Per, Lisa, Shake and Make, Doris, Elizabeth, Nell, Mick, Gail, Richard, Emily, Roger, Ben, Lori, Soldier, Emerald, Miles, Mercy Ann, Verily, Jedwiga, Sophia, Hitachi, Your Maman, Peter, Arez, Sugar, Albert, Brandon, yes, Brian, Sydney, and Lisa. So thank you guys for supporting this content. Really appreciate it. You know, we're not the biggest channel on YouTube, but because of this support, it keeps me motivated to keep producing content like this. So now let's get on with the data. And here is a chart showing how Americans view crime and the actual data on how much crime is happening. So this is the share on the purple chart, is how many people believe that crime has increased versus the previous year. And pretty much since the mid-2000s, people have consistently thought that there was more crime this year than the previous year, right? So it's always above this dotted line, this 50%. Now, over here is actually the number of victims of violent crime or property crime. And as you can see, it's actually been consistently going down for property crime, geez, like since the 70s, every year, with the exception of, looks like around 2009, that was probably during the recession. And then for violent crime, it's been going down all the way through, 2016, a slight increase after 2016, but almost flat. And so this is one of those things where I think you got to be careful with the narrative that, Antifa and, BLM mobs are taking over suburban America and, torching every white picket fence house they can find. Well, the data doesn't really suggest that crime is on the rise. If anything, over the long term, it's been going down. Unfortunately, the perception, for whatever reason, and it's not just Trump's fault, probably the media, has incentives to kind of like make things seem a little bit more tragic, like they say in the old newsrooms, if it bleeds, it leads. So that's just a little bit of a fact check on this whole rampant, quote unquote, rampant crime wave that's taking over the country. The data suggests that that's not really happening. Next, I want to show you search trends. So are people searching for our buddy Donald or our buddy Joe? So if you look at the past 30 days, there are certainly more searches for Trump than Biden. If you look at the past 90 days, this is what the trend looks like. There's been surges of searches for Trump in June and then in end of June. Biden searches is pretty steady. Generally looks like it's around, maybe 1/6 of Trump searches. And I think Biden's fine with that. I think Biden, if I were on the Biden campaign team, I would say, look, Joe, you don't need to be front and center. You just need to let Donald be Donald. And you'll probably win, because every time Donald speaks, generally it does not bode well for the president. And in fact, let me show you guys this clip. If you guys didn't see the Axios interview of the president, I want to share a clip because it's pretty startling, to be honest with you. Basically, the interviewer and the president are talking about the COVID crisis, and the president is bringing a bunch of charts, which for this channel, I was excited. I was like, oh my God, President Trump speaks in charts. So, but let's watch together, and you could tell me what you think, and we can have a little discussion. Okay, I shared this on my Twitter feed, which, by the way, is at Nerds for Yang. Here we're gonna go back. Let me make sure I'm sharing audio so you can hear him. Share audio, boom. And we're gonna go back here. We're gonna make this bigger.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're gonna look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death,
Yeah. Started to go up again.
well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than
We're
the
lower
world?
than
What is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
you can't do that. You have
Why
to go.
can't I do
You have to go.
You
by,
can't do that.
You have to go by where. Look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why
are
not
there.
as a proportion of
When we have
population?
somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that
Yeah.
where there's a case,
Oh, okay.
the people that live
Sure.
from
Oh.
those cases.
It's surely irrelevant.
By the way, before we proceed, if you guys have been at work and you're in a meeting and someone is presenting data that they don't really understand and they start getting flustered, this is what that looks like. It basically is a case of someone, in this case, the president, who was using statistics to try and make an argument. And the interviewer, I think Jonathan Swan is his name, not taking the bait and saying, oh, wait a minute, you're telling me death as a percentage of cases is going down. Well, that's going to be natural as you test more of the population. But death as a percentage of total population is going up. And I don't think the president understands the difference, has looked at that data, or doesn't want to acknowledge that, oh, when more people die in America, that's a bad thing, even if you can test so many more people and the percentage that get tested dying goes down, the absolute number of deaths could still be going up if you're increasing testing concurrently. I don't think the president really understands that, and it's concerning because this is the man that's making decisions on the COVID response. And, he really does need to have a competency, a basic sort of analytical literacy to make hard decisions. This is the leader of the free world, but let's keep going and see if he can recover.
X population and X percentage of death of that population
No,
versus
because you
South
have to
Korea.
go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example, 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy.
You don't
compared to
know
the-
that.
I do. It's
You
on the,
don't know
it's-
that.
You think they're faking their statistics? South Korea?
I
An
won't get
advanced
into
country?
that because I have a very good relationship
Yeah.
with the country, but you don't know that. And they have spikes. Look, here's
Germany low,
here's
9,000.
Here's one right here, United States. You take
Anyway.
the number of cases.
Okay.
Now look, we're last, meaning we're first.
Last, I don't know
We
what
have
we're
the
first
best.
in. As a
Well,
what?
take a look.
Okay.
Again, it's
I just-
cases.
Okay.
And we have cases
mean,
because of the testing. Wait,
1,000 Americans are dying a day, but I understand on cases, it's different.
no, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but
If you take a look at this other chart, look, this is our testing, I believe. This is the testing, yeah.
yeah, we do more tests.
No, wait a minute. Well, don't we get credit for that? And because we do more tests, we have more cases. In other words, we test more, we have, now take a look. The top one, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. The top, Jonathan,
If hospital rates were going down and deaths were going down, I'd say terrific.
All right. So here you have basically the president is eager, so eager to argue that the US does more testing than anyone else, which is true. We should give the president credit that we have been doing a way more testing per capita than most other countries. I think the thing that he's not getting is that the positive virus rate, the rate of tests that are coming back showing that the testee has contracted the virus is also really, really high. And so it's sort of like saying if your house is on fire, hey, I have more smoke detectors than the other houses. Yeah, you do. You have lots of smoke detectors, but your freaking house is on fire. And the other houses, they're not on fire as much. So congratulations, you've increased the testing, but we're not really here to have the most testing in the world. What we're really after is we want the least number of people dying. We want the lowest levels of comorbidity. So even if you're not dying, we don't want people having to have lung transplants, having to have long-term cognitive damage, long-term breathing issues. We want to have, that's really the end game. The end game is not to say that we do more testing than South Korea. But let's see if the president recovers.
You deserve to be praised for
Well, they
testing,
don't
but they're
even-
all going
You know,
up.
they very rarely talk.
60,000 Americans are in
If
hospital.
you watch the
1,000
news
dying
or
a
read
day.
the papers, they usually talk about new cases, new cases, new cases.
I'm talking about death.
Well, you look at
It's going
death.
up.
Death is way down from where it was.
It's 1,000 a
Death.
day. It was 2,500. It went down to 500. Now it's going up
Death,
again.
excuse me, where it was is much higher than where it is right now.
It went down, then it went up again.
spiked, but now it's going down again. It's
going
going
up.
down in Arizona. It's going down in Florida.
Nationally,
It's
it's
going
going
down in Texas. Take a look at this. These are the tests.
It's going down in Florida?
Yeah, it's going, it leveled out and it's going down. That's my report as of yesterday.
Oh boy. Yeah. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the full interview, it is really breathtaking how the president also talks about, oh, you know, testing is not that good. You know, they say we're doing too much tests. And then Swan says, who says that? He's like, well, the books. And then the president said, and then Swan says, what books? He's like, well, the manuals. And then Swan says, what manuals? It's crazy. It's crazy. But, you know, I know there are lots of people who watch this interview and they say, no, the president did a great job. And so, you know, everybody's going to draw their own conclusions. I will tell you, as someone who really appreciates logically well-constructed arguments backed by data and that are internally consistent and have driving kind of principles, I don't feel like Trump had a great interview at all. I feel like he was flailing, and he not just that part. They also talked about John Lewis, and they were the interviewer asked him, "Well, what do you think about Lewis's legacy?" And the president said, "Well, you know, he didn't come to my inauguration." It's like, bro, the guy was a civil rights hero. He just died. And you're talking about how he didn't go to your inauguration? Like, it's not always about you. It's about the country. You know, there was a time when Republicans had a slogan, and it was called Country First, meaning put the country ahead of your personal interests. President Trump does not exhibit that principle at all. I think he's more Trump first, frankly. Okay, so let's go. I digress. Sorry. Let's go back to this to the search data. Here we go. So, what are people searching for? Let's say in the last. Well, let's do the last 7 days. Searches for Trump about Beirut banning TikTok. Yosemite, I think he pronounced it Yosemite. I think it's basically like he's not I think he has some reading challenges. Let's see, what else are they searching for? A lot of TikTok. All these TikTok users pissed. The Axios interview, you guys should definitely watch the whole thing. It's cringy, but golly, this is the reality of the man that's making all the decisions. He's in the room where it happens. A lot of Yosemite, wow, and TikTok basically. For Biden, searching for junkie. Biden, are you a junkie? I think Biden asked someone if they're a junkie. Apparently, that was the accusation, at least. Cocaine, his CBS interview Cognitive, interview CBS, Barry Pressgraves. So that's basically for Trump. It's a lot about TikTok and mispronunciation. And for Biden, it's about him asking if someone's a junkie and some interview he did. So that's the internet trends. I think I covered most of the data, so I think I'm going to wrap up. I'm a few days away from going back to work. As you may have noticed, I've been putting out a lot of content because I took a a few weeks off to manage my international move. One other thing, if you want to know, is I've been working on a very cool project called Of the People. And let me just kind of give you a little background about it. And I'll probably be producing more content on it in the future. But I think it's pretty fun. Basically, the idea is that I was interviewing a lot of these Yang Gang for Congress candidates. And one of the things that occurred to me was like, my goodness, like there's a lot of people, who are very courageous making runs, like, you know, Heidi and Blair and Donna and Jen and all the rest, and David Kim. And, you know, these are great candidates, and Robbie. So, but on the other hand, I thought, wow, you know, there's probably a lot of other people who should be running, but they're not. And one of the reasons they're not is like, well, they may, you know, it's you kind of put yourself out there. It's kind of, you're a little bit kind of daunting. And so Of the People is basically, it's kind of like a Kickstarter or change.org for people thinking of running for office. And so the way it's going to work is you can create a profile, and you can very quickly gauge if there's any potential interest in you as a candidate. So you could talk about, well, you know, here's my background, here's the policies that are important to me, here's the district or the office I'll be running for. And then you could see, not just from friends and family, but more importantly, from non-friends and family, if there's a little bit of a kind of like traction. And then some of the specific features, you know, part of the problem, of course, we're trying to solve is that people in Congress especially have been serving for now 5 terms, which is, it used to be 2 or 3 terms, and that most of us are really unhappy with Congress, but 91% of congressmen get reelected. So like clearly, in my opinion, that means there needs to be more competition. So the way Of the People works is if you're a candidate, you can set up a profile in 10 minutes. You can collect non-binding pledges. So you can just see like, hey, if I think I can raise 10K or 100K, like I'll throw my hat in the ring. This is especially important for candidates who maybe they have family and they're not sure if they want to make that time commitment, or they're working and they're not sure that they want to leave their current job, or they have a business. And so they don't want to take this huge leap and then end up, you know, showing up with nothing. So this is a way to kind of dip your toe in the water and say like, oh, hey, if I were to run on these issues, you know, would you be interested in supporting me? And, you know, would you be willing to volunteer or potentially donate? And then you can make a better decision without, you know, kind of going all in, as you would say. In poker, this would be more like, oh, I'll pay the ante and see the flop, but I don't want to go all in. And then on the voter side, if you're not running, it could be a cool way for people to discover new, fresh voices, and maybe even kind of be an early adopter of campaigns. So you can then see like who's in your district, or maybe we could build like a filter and say, oh, I want to search for, you know, if it were me, I would say, hey, maybe I want to support like more Asian American candidates who support basic income and, I don't know, went to the same school that I did for undergrad. Or it could be, I want to support women candidates who feel really strongly about, you know, choice and are in, you know, the West Coast or in some district. Or you could just say like, I want to see which of the people candidates are trending and getting the most interest. I want to learn more about them. And then you can give feedback to these candidates on the issues, and maybe they can do like a Q&A. So it's kind of a way for both sides of this equation, the candidates and the voters, to kind of get to know each other. So yeah, I've been working on this for a little while now, and that's me many years ago. before my kids and job gave me a lot of gray hair. And then my co-founder, Ian, who I started a company with many years ago, we're both in the tech industry. So we're pretty comfortable building this platform. I think the question will be really, are we able to get enough people to support the project? And then, of course, once we launch it, can we get enough people to use it? Because, obviously, if it's just we built a bunch of software and nobody uses it, that wouldn't do any good. So yeah, just a little update on that. If you're interested, you can go to ofthepeople.co, ofthepeople.co. I'll put that in the chat, ofthepeople.co. And then I guess before we wrap up the stream, if you guys have any questions for me about anything, we can do a quick Ask Me Anything right now. What's on your minds, folks? If you have a question, go ahead and let me know, and I'll try and hit it before we wrap up. While I'm waiting for questions in the chat, let me just share any other thoughts on the Twitters that I was kind of sharing. We talked about the Axios thing. Oh, if you missed it, I had a really, really cool conversation with Andrew yesterday, and it's on this channel. And basically, Andrew and I spent about 40 minutes talking about the state of the Yang Gang and like, hey, what do you think about the splintering of the crew at the moment, and the Biden supporters versus the third party or write-in Andrew Yang supporters. So if you didn't get a chance to check out that interview, go ahead and look for it. I think he, as always, keeps it real. He's such a great guest, and so we're excited to produce that content. I just want to again thank the channel members or people who've done super chats who supported what we're doing over here, because it's been super fun. Let's see. Oh, I see a question from Mindful Skeptics from Boyce. When do we plan on launching Of the People? I'm thinking September, around September, let's just call it. Right now, we have just started software development. We started racking up some expenses, which is why we have a Patreon page. So we had to, of course, buy the domain, pay for an email service, set up a Amazon Web Services account, and now we're building out the authorization so people can sign in using, Facebook, Twitter, Google, and then we'll start building out the profiles, and we'll start with a really lame kind of prototype, but that's how software works. You kind of start very small and then keep improving it. So we have a nice crew. We have about, I think, me. I focus on product management. That's my day job. So this is very comfortable to me. Ian is the back-end engineer. We have a front-end engineer, Sam, who's helping us, who's also done some pretty big software development in the past. And then we have a designer, Marin, who used to be at Amazon. So this Of the People team basically is a lot of very experienced tech industry folks, all doing it volunteer on our own dime. And we bring experience from places like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, startups. So hopefully we can pull it off with your support. So go check out ofthepeople.co if you want to learn more. Captain Shadow, who do you think Biden will pick as a VP? Ooh, Captain Shadow also has a Niners avatar. I know I live in the Bay Area now, and I should support the Niners. I lived in Seattle for a long time. So I don't know if I'll support them, but I wish them well. To answer your question, who do I think? The first name that comes to mind is Susan Rice. But if you ask the gamblers, Let's see what they think. Let me share my screen so we can look at some data, because probably more interesting to look at data than my opinion. The gamblers are thinking it's going to be Harris. You notice all minority women, basically. You've got Harris, Rice, Demings, and Duckworth. Remember when Stacey Abrams was like the one that, wow, where the hell is she? Oh man, she's almost no chance. So yeah, I mean, if the gamblers are right, it will be either Harris, Rice, or Demings. Maybe Duckworth. Duckworth would be great. I'll answer a different question, which is who would I like to see? I would like to see Susan Rice. And the reason is, like, I really value intellectual horsepower. And Susan Rice, like, I mean, dude, she's a Rhodes Scholar, literally. That's legit. So I'm a big fan of people with, you know, really strong academic achievement. Maybe that's why I like Yang as well. But I would like Rice. I think she has gravitas. I also think Rice is not a career politician. So I think she could do it for a term, do her part, and then pass the baton. And she wouldn't automatically try and run for president the day after she's sworn in as VP. Whereas Harris, I'm a little worried, would basically have almost too much of an advantage in 2024. And then, of course, Harris has her own challenges with the African-American community. Ironically, as a person of color candidate, I think her history as a DA may be challenging. You know, that's the gamblers think it's Harris. I hope it's Rice. I would like Duckworth as well, obviously as an Asian American. It'd be great to see an Asian American VP, veteran. So that would be super cool. She doesn't seem to take a lot of shit. So Duckworth is really interesting as well. I don't know much about Demings, though. Do I think the VP will play a big part in the election? Yes, I think so, for a couple reasons. One is I think Trump is such a flawed candidate that the traditional role of the VP being a bit of an attack dog so that the top of the ticket can take the high ground, I think will be as important as ever. And in this case, Harris could prosecute Trump well, but I think Rice is also a pretty tough cookie as well. So, and then the opposite is also true. If something weird comes out about Harris or Rice, that could be a problem and could weaken the Biden candidacy. But I think more likely than not, if I were Biden, I would ask myself, who can really do some damage to Trump and land some punches? And, well, maybe that's why the gamblers are picking Harris, because she's, you know, she's a tough lady. Kirsch, thank you for being a member, Kirsch. Appreciate it. Do you think there could be an inflection point for the Trump or Biden campaign before November? What might cause it? So I think the biggest inflection point will be if it's a Biden inflection point negatively, it would probably be a very bad debate or bad interview. Interestingly enough, Trump can kind of flub an interview like he did with Axios. And for some reason, nobody challenges his cognitive ability. They just think, well, he's lying, but he's twisting the facts, but he has to be smart to be able to do that. I actually think he was beyond his depth and he didn't really understand the questions from Swan and you know, it was over his head. But if Biden had a similar interview where he's like confused and flailing like Donald was, then I think for whatever reason, people are really concerned about Biden's kind of mental health. And maybe I shouldn't say for whatever reason, because he was never like the sharpest knife in the drawer, even back in the old days. So, you know, that could be an inflection point. In terms of Trump, you know, Geez, what could Trump do to do even worse? I would say, like, I mean, he's already kind of sending unidentified federal, law enforcement into cities again without invitation, and kind of throwing people in the back of minivans. He's already totally screwing up this COVID crisis and having no national response and just saying it's up to the states. And again, if you take the burning house analogy, you don't put out a fire in a house by saying, well, it's up to each room to decide how they want to deal with this fire. No, man, it's freaking fire. It's going to spread. But that, so I don't know that. And then, foreign policy, like we already know the Russians have been accused of paying for bounties on American soldiers' heads, or at the very least supplying the Taliban with equipment. But that doesn't seem to really affect Trump's support, because I think people will say, oh, the Russians, ha, 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 fake news. So I don't know there's much that could hurt Trump. I think he will just continue to be on this decline because he's so Trump. But Biden, there's perhaps more of a risk of an inflection point if he really does a face plant in an interview or in a debate. Let's see. Yeah, Captain Shadow thinks it's down to Harrison Rice. That he also likes Rice. I like Rice too. I mean, now in fairness, Rice does have an association with the Obama administration. She might be a little hawkish. So that's not a big win to get the Democrats out. But I don't know, if I were Biden on Biden's campaign team, I'm not sure that I need to worry too much about Democrats coming out. I think Trump is going to be the big turnout kind of tool that we need. I think the bigger question is, could Rice attract some centrists, some swing voters? Maybe. Could Harris? Probably, actually. In a weird way, Harris could be a nice counterbalance to Trump's law and order rallying cry. But then, will BLM give Harris a lot of crap and create a lot of drama? Maybe. So maybe Rice would be safer. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. Vaccine launch delay could mess up Trump's chances. It could. I suspect that Trump is going to declare victory and mission accomplished on the vaccine probably by the beginning of October, no matter what happens. So there's a old saying I heard years ago, which is like, if tortured long enough, the data will always confess. So you could look through any vaccine study and find something to celebrate. You'd be like, oh, well, this one just passed phase 2 in record time. Or we now have over 300 trials concurrently. Those are all true things. So will the American voter discern the difference between some spin and actually having a safe, tested, proven vaccine at scale? Probably not. So I think the risk to Trump of a delay in the vaccine development is probably minor, because I think he'll spin the same way he was convinced that or tried to convince everyone that hydroxychloroquine was kind of the ultimate cure. I think he'll probably, whatever vaccine trial happens, he's gonna declare victory. Yeah. So anyway, I know we're close to an hour. I want to thank you all for joining me. Don't forget to like and share this stream if you thought it was useful, and if you really like this content, please consider becoming a member, and then we can start building up our Nerds for Humanity ad budget. And I actually just sent the Yang Speaks team an email saying, hey, what are your rates for advertising? Because I think the more people we can get to be part of our audience, the better guests we can land and more frequent we can get these kind of cool guests to come on the show. And how awesome would it be if we could get Biden to come on? That would be an interesting interview, because I would probably want to make it a fair interview and ask him some, challenging questions. And so that's an interesting thing where you're like, oh, well, if I'm hoping he wins, I think we would still try and have that journalistic integrity and keep the conversation real. But at any rate, or maybe we could get Rice on. That would be cool. So, yes, maybe I could go to other podcasts. I have reached out to other Yang Gang podcasts and offered myself up as a guest. I think everybody's busy. And I think, the Zach and Matt show is going to have me on. So that's exciting. And I had reached out to Paget, but I think Paget's going to be focusing on less political stuff for a little while. So obviously that won't be as relevant. And I was on Hill of Roses. So I think I probably should make a visit back to Problem Solver. So we'll try and do the rounds there. But with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. Hope you guys have a great day. And just be aware, once I start going back to work, my first day back at work is August 10th. I'll be more on a weekly schedule. For the last couple of weeks, I've been on daily. So if you haven't seen my stuff lately, go to the channel. There's been a new video almost every day. Keep it real. Goodbye, nerds, and see you next time.